The officer's hand slammed onto her shoulder so hard the entire bank froze. "Ma'am, I said stop. Step away from the counter." Customers gasped. A mother pulled her child closer. Phones lifted. And in the middle of it all, a black woman stood perfectly still, calm, silent. Her hands raised slowly, not in fear, but in disappointment. The cop dragged her back, gripping her wrist like she was already guilty. "She's trying to pull out money from a flagged account," he barked. "Possible fraud." The teller shook her head, terrified. "Officer, I never said," but he didn't care. He shoved her toward the floor, until she whispered, "Officer, you really need to stop." He leaned closer. "Or what?" She looked him dead in the eyes. "Or you're about to arrest an FBI agent. Keep watching, because what happens next exposes everything." The room went silent. The officer froze mid-breath, still holding her arm, still convinced he had caught someone. But the woman didn't flinch. She straightened her jacket, brushed her sleeve where he grabbed her, and spoke in a voice so steady it cut through the entire bank. "My name is Special Agent Naomi Carter, and you just made a very big mistake." The teller's eyes widened. The security guard by the door dropped his coffee. Even the cop who had been so loud seconds ago suddenly looked like a kid caught stealing candy. But he tried to recover. "Ma'am, anyone can say they're FBI." Naomi stared at him, not angry, not afraid, just tired. Tired of moments like this. Moments where a woman who looked like her wasn't seen as a customer, but as a criminal. She slowly reached into her pocket. The officer instantly tensed, hand on his holster. "Relax," she said flatly, pulling out a black wallet. She flipped it open. The badge caught the ceiling lights. The ID card had the blue federal seal. Her picture. Her signature. Her title, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Internal Affairs Division. Every officer in the room inhaled sharply. Internal Affairs. The people who investigate them. Naomi tilted her head. "Now, would you like to explain why you laid hands on a citizen without cause? Or why you ignored the teller? Or why you assumed I was committing fraud before even asking a single question?" The officer swallowed hard. "Look, there's been a misunderstanding." "No," she said, stepping closer. "It was profiling. And I was placed here today to see exactly this." People whispered. Phones kept recording. And the officer finally realized this wasn't a routine call. This was a setup. And he walked straight into it. The bank felt smaller now, as if every breath, every whisper, every heartbeat belonged to the moment unfolding in front of them. Officer Daniels, the man who had yanked Naomi out of line minutes before, stood pale and stiff, his confidence draining from him like water from a cracked pipe. He had walked into the bank believing he was handling a simple fraud suspect. Now he was realizing he had put his hands on the one person he should never have touched. An undercover FBI agent whose entire assignment was to investigate him. Naomi held his stare, and for the first time since the call came in, Daniels felt something he wasn't used to. Fear. Not the kind criminals felt when they saw him, but the kind a man feels when he realizes the situation is far, far bigger than he imagined. "Agent Carter," he stammered, If you were undercover, why didn't you say something earlier?" Naomi slowly crossed her arms. "Because I wanted to see how you treat people when you think no one important is watching." The crowd murmured again. Daniel's partner, Officer Miller, stepped forward. "Ma'am, with all due respect, we responded to a call." "Really?" Naomi interrupted. She pointed to the trembling teller. "Did you ask her any questions when you arrived? Did you verify the ID she said was real? Did you even look at the paperwork she told you matched the account holders?" Miller didn't speak, because they all knew the answer. Naomi turned to the teller. "Can you repeat what you told them when they came in?" The young woman nodded, voice shaky. I told them everything was verified. The ID, the signature, the account number, everything. I even showed them the system. But they didn't even look. They just grabbed you." A gasp went through the lobby. Daniels exhaled sharply, frustration replacing fear. "This is ridiculous. You can't judge an entire response over one miscommunication. Naomi stepped closer, her voice low but precise. I'm not judging one moment. I'm evaluating your entire precinct. Your response times, your complaint reports, your use of force files. And trust me, this isn't your first miscommunication. Daniel's jaw tightened. How long have you been watching us? Naomi leaned in. Long enough to know you've been cutting corners. Long enough to know Internal Affairs didn't assign me here by chance. Long enough to know you were going to slip. Daniel's fists clenched. You set us up. No, she said calmly. I gave you the opportunity to follow procedure. You chose not to. Miller put a hand on Daniel's arm. Let it go, man. Not here. Not in front of all these people. But Daniels pulled away, pride fighting for its last breath. So what now? You gonna arrest me? Destroy my career because of one mistake? Naomi blinked slowly. You already did that yourself. A hush fell. Naomi turned toward the bank doors, gesturing subtly. Two men in suits entered, sharp, focused, and holding federal credentials. One addressed her. Agent Carter, ma'am, Internal Affairs Command is ready. Do you want to move forward? Daniels panicked. Move forward with what? Naomi faced him one last time. With the investigation you just failed, Officer Daniels. The one that determines whether you keep your badge or lose it today. His breathing hitched. You're ruining my life. No, Naomi said. You ruined a lot of lives the exact same way you tried to ruin mine. Today was the first time someone could fight back. The lobby stayed frozen. Customers, tellers, security, everyone watching history unfold in real time. Phone cameras were still recording, and Daniels realized the world was about to see the truth. Naomi signaled to the agents. Escort him outside. Officer Miller stays. Miller froze. Me? What did I do? Naomi looked him dead in the eyes. You're going to tell me everything. Because the investigation only starts with him. But it doesn't end with him. The agents took Daniels by the arms. He didn't resist now. There was no fight left. Just fear and regret. As he was walked out the door, Naomi finally exhaled. A long, steady breath she had held in for 3 months of undercover work. But she wasn't done. The biggest confrontation was still coming. The interrogation room wasn't a room at all. It was a mirror reflecting every choice, every shortcut, every quiet abuse of authority that Officer Daniels had believed no one would ever see. But Naomi, she saw everything, and as Daniels sat across the cold metal table, wrists cuffed, eyes darting toward the door like a man hoping for a miracle, Naomi entered. Not as the innocent woman he dragged in a bank lobby. Not as the victim he thought he could intimidate. But as Special Agent Naomi Carter, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Internal Affairs Division. The air pressed down on the room. Daniels swallowed hard. You're making a big mistake, Agent Carter. My captain will back me up. Naomi placed a folder on the table. The sound echoed like a gavel. No, she said softly. He won't. She flipped open the folder. Inside were printed complaints, each stamped with a red seal. Investigated, unresolved. 8 civil reports, Naomi said. 4 use of force incidents, 2 racial discrimination complaints, and 1 assault complaint from a minor. Daniel stiffened. That kid lied. Naomi raised a hand. Let me finish. She pulled out a tablet and hit play. A bank camera recording filled the room. The exact moment Daniels grabbed Naomi, twisting her arm, pulling her out of line, ignoring the teller's protests. He watched himself commit the same pattern he had denied for years. Naomi leaned forward. You call that a miscommunication? You call this procedure? Daniel's breathing turned shallow. You don't understand. We get calls, real threats, fake IDs, stolen accounts. I was doing my job. No, Naomi said quietly. You were abusing your authority because you thought nobody would stop you. Daniel slammed his cuffed hands on the table. I've been a cop for 15 years. You think I don't know fraud when I see it? Naomi pulled out something else. Something that made the room go dead silent. A printout of the bank's verification log. The one that showed the ID matched, and the signature matched. The account was active. The teller approved the transaction. Naomi slid it toward him. Everything was correct. And you still drag me out." His jaw trembled. Naomi pressed a small button on a recorder. His own voice played, "Black woman, suspicious, probably fake." She paused the recording. "That was your reason. Not evidence, not procedure, just prejudice." Daniel's eyes filled with panic, like a cornered man seeing the collapse of the world he built around himself. You baited me," he whispered. Naomi tilted her head. "You exposed yourself." Daniel's composure cracked. "You're going to destroy me." Naomi took a deep breath. "This isn't about you losing a badge. This is about the people you hurt keeping it." For the first time, Daniels broke. Not loud, not dramatic, just a slow, sinking collapse. His voice cracked. "I was under pressure. We're short-staffed. I was tired. I made a mistake." Naomi's stare hardened. So did they. She tapped the folder, and they didn't get second chances. 2 federal agents stepped in, standing behind him. Daniel shut his eyes. "What happens now?" Naomi closed the folder with finality. "Officer Daniel Brooks, you are being suspended effective, immediately pending termination, and federal review. Internal Affairs will pursue charges. You will not return to duty." He looked up with hollow eyes. "This is the end of me." Naomi paused, then spoke the words that sealed the moment. "No, this is the end of what you became, but it might be the beginning of who you could have been, if you had chosen better." The agents lifted him from the chair. Daniels didn't fight, didn't shout, didn't even look at her. He just walked out slowly, shoulders defeated, the weight of his own actions finally catching up to him. When the door shut, Naomi sat alone in the chair, and for the first time since going undercover, she let herself feel it. The exhaustion, the fear she had hidden, the memories of every black woman who didn't have a badge to protect her, every person who suffered in silence because someone like Daniels believed no one would believe them. A tear slid down her cheek, not of weakness, but of release. She whispered to herself, "It's done, and justice begins now." The next morning, sunlight washed through the tall windows of the federal building as Naomi Carter walked down the hallway. No disguise, no undercover story, no quiet restraint. Just herself, a black woman who stood her ground, a federal agent who finished what she started, a human being who refused to be broken. Her steps were slow but steady, carrying the weight of a night that shook an entire precinct. People didn't whisper when she passed. They stared, not with judgment, but with something deeper, something that looked like respect, because the story had spread. The footage had been reviewed. The complaints reopened, and the truth everyone avoided had finally come to light. Bank customers who witnessed what happened, community members in solidarity, a few officers who were tired of covering for the ones who tarnished the badge, and right in front, the bank teller, Rosa. Rosa ran to her the moment she stepped out. "Agent Carter, I'm so sorry for what he did to you. We tried to stop him, we really did." Naomi put a gentle hand on her shoulder. "I know, and your statement helped make sure he couldn't twist the story." Rosa exhaled with relief, shaking her head. "I've seen him do this to other people, but nobody ever fought back." Naomi nodded slowly. "Most people don't get the chance. That's why this case matters." A man stepped forward next, an elderly customer from the bank. "I brought my granddaughter today," he said, voice trembling. "I want her to see what courage looks like." Naomi smiled softly. "That's kind of you. But courage, it's not loud. It's doing the right thing even when nobody is watching." He nodded. "She needs to hear someone say that." But then the tone shifted, because cameras appeared. Reporters pushed forward. Microphones rose. Questions flew. "Agent Carter, is it true he filed false reports? Will there be criminal charges? Do you believe racism played a role in the incident? Are more officers under investigation?" Naomi didn't flinch. She stepped up to the microphones, calm, professional, unshaken. "Let me make one thing clear," she began. "This isn't about one bad officer. It's about a pattern, a culture, a system that allows misuse of power to go unchecked." Cameras clicked rapidly. "The investigation will continue," she said. "It won't end here. Not while there are still people afraid to speak up. One reporter asked quietly, "What made you keep going? What made you stand up instead of walking away?" Naomi looked at the crowd, at Rosa, at the young granddaughter watching with wide, hopeful eyes, and finally back at the cameras. "I stood up because every black woman deserves to walk into a bank and be treated like a customer, not a suspect. Because authority means nothing if it isn't accountable. Because silence helps nobody." Her voice grew steadier. "And because justice isn't just a job for me, it's who I am." The crowd broke into applause. Not loud, not wild, but meaningful. Like the sound of a community healing. Slowly, but finally. Later that afternoon, Naomi returned to the bank. Not to withdraw money, not to finish what she started, but to face the place where it all began. The manager rushed over. "Agent Carter, everything has been corrected in our system. We've also implemented new training for our staff and contacted corporate about the incident." Naomi nodded. "Thank you. That's how real change begins." As she walked toward the exit, she noticed something that stopped her. The chair where Daniels dragged her from. The spot where customers stared in shock. The floor where her dignity was tested. She stood there in silence, allowing herself a moment she never had during the chaos. A moment to breathe. A moment to reclaim the space. Rosa approached gently. "You okay?" Naomi exhaled. "I am now." That evening, back at home, Naomi finally sat on her couch, exhausted, relieved and emotionally drained. Her phone buzzed. A message from her supervisor. "Excellent work. Your actions have already initiated a full departmental audit. Proud of you." She placed the phone aside and closed her eyes. For the first time in days, she felt peace. Not because the system was fixed. Not because the fight was over. Not because justice was perfect. But because she had used her voice, her power, her truth, and it mattered. She whispered to herself, soft, steady, and certain. "This time, we were heard."